So your doctor told you to cut out the butter. He said it's making you fat. He said that it's clogging your arteries. And you're thinking, well, what the heck, I guess it's time to go. Well, no. Let me break some things down for you. I'm not just trying to completely contradict your doctor. That's not what I'm all about. Okay, what I'm trying to do is just support real science and giving you the information that's out there as far as the peer-reviewed journals. So in this video, I'm going to break down 5 benefits of good quality butter. Okay, operative words there are good quality butter. So we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about how it has an effect on your body in a very positive way, including more fat loss, especially if you're on a lower carb, higher fat diet. So let's go ahead and let's break it down. You're tuned into the internet's leading performance, nutrition, and fat loss channel with new videos on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays at 7 a.m. Pacific time. I want to make sure you go ahead and hit that red subscribe button, and then go ahead and hit that little bell icon to turn on notifications. That way you never ever miss a beat. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into this thing. The first one I want to talk about is more of a justification thing. Okay, I have to talk about saturated fat being a benefit when it's done in the right way, okay? So saturated fat, obviously, most of our doctors are gonna tell us that it's bad. But by now, if you've watched enough of my videos, you know that it's really not bad. But let me talk about why it's actually good. Okay, first of all, the obvious thing, it's an insulator. It's an insulator for our nervous system. So our nerves have a myelin sheath that is built up of saturated fats. Okay, this myelination is very important when it comes down to being able to send a signal from our brain to a different area of our body. If we don't have enough saturated fat, it makes us more susceptible to stress. If we're more susceptible to stress, we are more susceptible to cardiovascular disease. So in my opinion, less saturated fat equals more stress equals higher risk for a cardiovascular event, right? But the big one that we need to talk about is lipoprotein A. So when someone comes up to you and they say, whoa, you're going a little heavy on the butter there, I think your response might need to be something like this. Hey, butter has something in it that helps reduce lipoprotein A. Okay, saturated fats get rid of lipoprotein A. Lipoprotein A is a huge driver for cardiovascular disease. Lipoprotein A is something that has a huge affinity for the arterial wall. So when it's floating through our arteries, it likes to stick to the arterial wall. Now, that's not the big problem. What the problem is once it sticks to the arterial wall, then our immune system triggers a response where it attacks what is hitting the wall. It is that attack and that immune response and that swelling and that inflammation that triggers atherosclerosis. That's what's going to trigger a heart attack. So believe it or not, the saturated fat gets rid of the lipoprotein A. Now lastly, that saturated fat is also needed to help the calcium get out of the bloodstream and into the bone. Now that's all cool, that sounds fine and dandy, but the real benefit of that is we end up lessening the risk for the calcification of the arteries, which again is what helps contribute to plaque. So everything that I'm reading, the research that I'm finding shows that when done right, saturated fat actually improves our cardiovascular health. But now let's talk about fat loss, which brings me to the second benefit of butter, conjugated linoleic acid in a high quality form. Not the CLA that you'll see in a supplement store, not the CLA that you see put in a pill online. That is a different conjugated linoleic acid. Conjugated linoleic acid is actually a trans fat that comes from animal sources, but it's not the typical trans fat. Normally, the FDA requires that trans fats are put on a label. They're only required to be put on a label if they are a synthetic or chemically altered form. Trans fats that come from an animal source are actually healthy. Okay, and we're talking about specific bonds here. We're talking about CIS bonds and trans bonds, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about. The simple point is that animal sources of CLA are a CIS 9 bond and 11 trans bond, compared to the chemical variation being a 10 CIS bond and a 12 trans bond. All that means, I know it's complicated, is that one is natural, one is not. The CLA that you see in the stores is going to be safflower oil or sunflower oil, a lower quality oil, that's been chemically altered to turn a linoleic acid into a conjugated linoleic acid. I rest my case there. The point is that is not the right kind of stuff. True animal CLA that you're going to find in good quality butter drives fat loss quite significantly, and it does so because it alters lipid storage. Okay, it changes the white adipose tissue, so it changes the adipocytes to actually not want to store lipids as much through upregulating something known as uncoupling protein 1. Now there's a study that was published in the Journal of Lipid Research, took a look at 18 studies. So they took a look at 18 trials and they compiled some data from them. And they found that all it took was 3.2 grams per day of good quality CLA, like from butter, to drive a 0.2 pound per week weight loss. Now, it doesn't sound like much, but considering all they're doing is adding CLA or adding like a high quality butter, That's pretty darn cool. Okay, so basically what we're finding here is that this CLA makes it so that the fat cell doesn't want to absorb as much, again, through upregulating uncoupling protein 2. It has to be a high quality butter though, not like something like a margarine or just a regular store-bought butter. Okay, it leads me in to the next thing, which is vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is not just a boring vitamin. Before you turn off this video and you're like, I don't care about K2, let me tell you about how it actually can affect your fat loss and affect your overall health. Okay, so we know about K2 because we see vitamin D companies marketing it all the time. K2 is going to help vitamin D do its job. K2 is going to help calcium get into the bone. That is true. And that has to do with something known as osteocalcin. Okay, osteocalcin gets upregulated, which means the calcium goes from the artery into the bone. That is great. Okay, that helps us out a ton. It helps osteoporosis, helps prevent cardiovascular disease. Yes, but what we really want to talk about is the matrix GLA. The matrix GLA is a specific protein that gets activated. Okay, it gets activated by vitamin K2. That's why we used to call vitamin K2, before we actually called it a vitamin, we called it activator X, because we didn't know what it was. All we knew is that it activated really awesome things within our body. And when it activates those things, it makes it so that our cells uptake nutrients a lot easier. So not just calcium getting into the bone, but other nutrients getting utilized better. So when you're on like a keto diet and you're trying to get as much in the way of nutrients, you're trying to extract those nutrients as much as you can, then heck yes, you want to have this activator X activating things so that the cells can utilize it. Now, the caveat is it has to be a grass-fed. It has to be a grass-fed butter, because if it's not grass-fed butter, you're not getting the vitamin K2 that's coming through the process. Okay, we're talking fat-soluble vitamins that are going to get stored in the fat. So we're talking about the fat in the butter, but those vitamins can't get stored in the fat if they're not consuming the vitamins. So it has to be grass-fed. That's where usually we're talking about like the Kerrygold butters, and we're talking about the other grass-fed butters, the Irish butters, and things like that. Now, those of you that know my channel know that I'm a big fan of the Fat Fuel Company. So if you ever drink fat coffee or keto coffee, which is like the butter in your coffee along with some coconut oil and some things like that, then you're going to dig Fat Fuel, because Fat Fuel has taken high quality grass-fed butter, but they put it into a powder form. So this is why I like it. It's really cool because I don't always get to carry pads of butter with me, especially when I travel. So if you have grass-fed, good quality grass-fed butter in a powder form, then you can actually have it on the go. So they've taken grass-fed butter powder, they've taken coconut oil powder, they've taken high quality coffee, a little bit of stevia. Anyway, they've made it so you can have your keto coffee on the go without a bunch of messy prep, but you're getting the conjugated linoleic acid, you're getting the good quality saturated fat, you're getting everything you need. But the best part of all this, anyone that's watching this video is going to get a special discount on the Fat Fuel Company's coffee. They've got coffee, cocoa, and matcha. So after you finish this video and after you share it with your friends and everything, check them out down in the description and you get a special discount on it and you can try them out. So now let's go ahead and let's move in to the fourth benefit, which is quite honestly probably one of the biggest ones. Okay, and you're going to get this whether it's, again, grass-fed butter powder or grass-fed butter from the store. This is butyrate, and it is critical on a low-carb diet. Okay, butyrate is a short-chain fatty acid that feeds your intestinal cells. Your intestinal cells feed on 70% butyrate. 70% of the cells in your gut live on butyrate. They live on this short chain fatty acid, and if you're not getting it in, they're essentially starving. And if they are starving, they are unable to form the tight junctions that they need to form. The tight junctions, although sound silly and kind of stupid, are what make it so that larger particles of the food you eat don't get let into the bloodstream. If larger particles get into the bloodstream, your immune system attacks them because they're too large. And when it attacks them, it triggers systemic inflammation, fogginess, lots of water retention, joint pain, the overall sensation of feeling like garbage. Okay, so we have to take care of those little teeny suckers in our gut and give them what they want, which is the short chain fatty acids. So things get really cool when you look at a study that was published in the journal Aging Cell. So this study found that butyrate increased muscle cross-sectional fiber area, meaning it made muscle more dense and it made muscle bigger, but also decreased the amount of fat that was able to accumulate in the intramuscular area. So basically made it so we weren't able to absorb as much fat in the muscle area, but we're able to make the muscle itself bigger. Now, it did this because it increased mitochondrial biogenesis. Mitochondrial biogenesis is something where your mitochondria, which is the energy powerhouse of your cell, gets bigger and denser. Normally something that you could only get by doing longer bouts of endurance work. Now, I'm not making a complete conclusion here, but it's kind of cool when you find out that you can eat butter and get a similar effect to running a half marathon. I mean, that's not concrete, but it's a pretty cool example, right? We're having the same mitochondrial biogenesis effect. That is some wicked cool stuff. Okay, now additionally, there's some hormonal and some genetic things. Okay, there's something known as GADD45A. This is a gene that's been known to actually induce muscle atrophy as people get older. So the more of this gene we have, the more muscle we lose as we get older, which makes sense, right? Well, the cool thing is butyrate stops this GADD45A. So it can kind of have a genetic effect to make it so that as we get older, we don't end up having as much muscle wasting. Okay, there's one more little benefit. It's a cool one, and I'll keep it short just so you can get on your way. It's called a glycosphingolipid. Okay, glycosphingolipids are a specific kind of fatty acid that are found in butter, okay, specifically grass-fed butter again. And what it does is it feeds an additional kind of bacteria, and it feeds an additional kind of cell within your gut that has a correlation with your immune system. So if you're someone that gets sick a lot, the glycosphingolipids feed the right kind of cells in your gut to help you out, to prevent you from getting sick, but also just to heighten your immune system in the right way at the right time. So all in all, butter is some pretty solid stuff if you're getting the right kind. Okay, I never condone a ton of dairy. Okay, you know that by watching my videos. But when you do it right, and you get the good clean stuff. Okay, grass-fed, grass-finished, and that's the only way to go. No margarine, no cruddy store-bought stuff. If you're gonna get the store-bought crud, just go for coconut oil otherwise. But if you're on the go, you can always utilize fat fuel too and get something nice and easy, whether you want it with caffeine or without. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. If you have ideas for future videos, put them down in the comment section below. And a big thank you again to Fat Fuel for offering a discount to anyone that's watching this video. And a big thank you to everyone. See you guys soon.